So, chapter 63 and 64 of Record of Ragnarok have been translated. I know the leaks came out a few weeks ago. Some of you may have been wondering, why didn't you do a leaks discussion on it when you did that on the last few, at least the last two chapters, well, technically 1.5 chapters. Still don't really know why they did that. And this is the end of the fight, so you would think it would be pretty significant. I was not really sure how I felt about the chapters. I thought it would probably be best to just wait for them to get translated and then give my opinion on them once I was able to, really read through everything and get a full grasp of everything that was going on in the chapters. So now that we're here and I'm able to do that, I'm very sad to say that this really didn't do much for me. This is probably, for me personally, one of the weakest endings to any of the fights in Ragnarok. This fight, round 7, for me, is probably in competition for the weakest of all of the fights in Ragnarok. How do I describe this? I know not all the fights are the same, but you would have to compare it to the way a lot of the other fights have concluded. And for some reason, this one just really didn't hit with me. I think a lot of it was because most of the fight leading up to this wasn't really doing much for me. I thought parts of it were very boring or badly paced. It just had bad stuff in it. Just wasn't very good. But then, last month's chapter I thought was pretty good. The Hades backstory was good. And then the second half of the previous month's chapter was pretty good. And then this just wasn't really hitting for me. Maybe it was because I just didn't feel particularly invested in Chin or Hades. For starters, I think a big problem with Chin for a lot of this fight is there was just so much focus on him for the first, half of it, that it just became kind of annoying, in a sense. It was just oversaturated with how much they were focusing on Chin, where Hades was getting pushed off to the sidelines, even though the fights are supposed to focus on both of the combatants to a relatively equal extent. Whereas the entire first half of it was pretty much just the Chin show. He had 2 flashbacks, one of which was a whole 80 chapters. It was, it was a good flashback, but it's good in a void. When you put it more into the grand scheme of the fight, it becomes more of an issue for the round and the pacing of it. So a lot of these post-round 4 fights have had pacing issues where it seems like they're just kind of stretching them out a bit for volume sales. We need another quick fight again. We need some more fast fights. We need a low diff, frankly. I know people will be pissed about that, but we need a low diff, or at least another mid diff like we did with round 1. We can't have every single fight be these super extreme high diff battles, because it's getting a little old. There was a time when we were all like, Hades should have magic powers. Yes, at this point it does seem like we're not going to have any gods with, hacks abilities and shit. No one's going to be casting magical spells. So we were kind of setting ourselves up for disappointment with that in regards to Hades, but then, the Pluto Ichor was cool. But then not really much was done with it. That's another problem. For a lot of this fight, Hades is just not very interesting, not at all that inspiring, and his fighting style is kind of boring. It's visually less interesting than Poseidon's fighting style. His motivation, when we get his backstory, that's good. We should have been getting more of that from earlier on, because Hades only becomes, really likable as a character in the 2 chapters before he loses. The rest of the fight up to that, he's not really that interesting. There should have been a lot more focus on Hades as a character earlier on in the fight. I think that probably would have helped quite a bit. And then the ending just did not really feel all that climactic. You know what I mean? When you go back through at least the first 4, the conclusions of the fight are very over the top and climactic. They're very high octane. There's a lot of build up to it, and the ending of this fight does have quite a bit of build up in terms of like the final blow lasting over like at least half a dozen pages. But I don't think any of the art or the paneling had the same sort of impact that you had with like the end of the first round, or the second round, or the third round. The ending of round 4 was actually relatively low-key compared to the other rounds, but that was because it was a much more emotional and narrative-driven fight than the other ones, which were much more just fights. And I think that's kind of a problem that the post-round 4 fights have had, is that they've all been trying to do, like, both at the same time, and it's not really working that well. I'm pretty sure most people agree that post-round 4, the fights have just not really been as good. I'm not sure what the exact reasoning for that is. With this fight, it almost feels like they're just rehashing the first 3 rounds again. Like, we're just kind of running out of ideas, and as such are just taking a bunch of the concepts and facets of previous fights and just combining them together into one. And it was very unfortunate that that ended up being during the round in which we had 2 characters that everyone was really hyped up to see, Qin Shi Huang and Hades, both of whom had really cool introductions. They seemed really awesome from the get-go, and then the fight just didn't really do anything with it. Now, of course, this is all in my opinion, and the opinions of a lot of the people on my Discord. You know, of course, the wonderful Discord is full of people that like to bitch and moan about things all the time, so not surprising in the slightest. But I've been very interested in seeing what other people's reactions to the fight are, because I've seen a lot of people that really like it. Like, I think Izanagi said that it's his favorite of the rounds. I've seen, like, a lot of people on the subreddit. I remember Dio made a post that was, like, intentionally kind of bad for the purpose of baiting reactions, but there were a ton of people coming in very fervently saying how good they thought the round was, and I just don't really see it. So I did a poll earlier today. Not that many people have voted in it as of recording this, but as of right now, a decent majority of the people actually liked this round, and I don't really get why. So, if you are one of those people that actually really liked this round, or at least, liked it in general, thought it was good, please explain in the comments. I'm genuinely very curious as to what you thought about this round and why. Now, thank God, this round is finally over. We are freed from its trappings, and that means that hopefully next month we can get started, or, at least start with the setup for round 8, which will hopefully be a lot better. And I'm thinking the way we do that is by doing something a little different. Instead of trying to do more of the meathead stuff, like the traditional big strong attack versus strong attack combatants, we should try using some of the more tactical stuff from round 4 like we had with Jack, but have it be on both sides. For me, the way to do that would be with having Tesla fight Beelzebub, which is probably one of the matchups I would put the most stock into at the moment. I know I originally really thought that Kentoki would fight Beelzebub, and I kind of forgot about that theory until someone brought it up earlier today. I suppose that one's plausible as well, but that's going to be us doing the big strong guy versus the weak smart guy again. And I would prefer if we stop doing the same things again and go back to trying out something new like we did with round 4. Alternatively, we could have more of like a ranged focus battle. You know, most of these battles have been melee-centric. Obviously, Simohaya is going to be mostly a ranged fighter. A lot of people have thought that he's going to fight Apollo because he's seemingly also the only other ranged fighter. Although in Myth, it's mostly Artemis that does the archery, and Apollo just kind of has a bow and doesn't do much with it. But, you know, creative liberties, I'm sure because Apollo has a bow and arrow in mythology, he's going to become an archery god, because of course. Or you have someone like Anubis, who's supposed to be the judge of the dead, who knows what could happen with that. If we're going to be going based on the pattern of the last few fights, it seems like Nostradamus is probably going to go up next, because he got introduced during this fight, just like how Hades got introduced during the last one, and then Buddha got introduced in the one before that. I guess the only reason Beelzebub hasn't gone up to fight already is because Hades was also introduced last round, so who knows. Though I suppose both Buddha and Hades were kind of like twist fighters, because Buddha switched sides and Hades was added onto the roster to replace him, so who really knows there? I guess it's possible Nostradamus is next, but I've personally always considered him to be like one of the last fighters to go. And since humanity is now in the lead, I doubt Brynhild would be like, oh god, we really need a win right now, Nostradamus, you go up. I don't think that's going to happen. They're going to save him for one of the remaining top tiers, you know. Possibly Odin. Seems like he may fight Odin. Or one of the other really strong remaining gods, who knows. But I guess we're just going to have to wait and find out. Once again, I was pretty underwhelmed by this round. What did you guys think about it? With that, that's pretty much all for today's video. If you enjoyed, please be sure to like, comment, subscribe, and click that notification bell so you don't miss any of my uploads. I do Record of Ragnarok chapter reviews every month. If you enjoy discussing Record of Ragnarok with other people, or you just enjoy the content I produce on this channel, I highly suggest you check out my Discord server. I have a link to that down in the description. Thanks for watching. I'll see you guys around. Take care.